welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I am going to be answering a few assumptions about life of an evening class student. Let's get on with the video. Number one is it easy? Honestly, not exactly, but that's more so because I'm basically doing my uni course online, and yes, I'm wearing a very baggy jumper because it's cold. So I'm doing my uni course essentially online, but with night classes involved as well. This is because I have taken my course at the local college because it's connected with the uni, so we get like lecturers come in and whatnot and teach us, but we only have 2 to 3 lessons a week, 2 nights a week. So that comes to about, if each lesson's like an hour and a half, that comes to 4.5 hours a week. You'd think, oh great, that's so much easier. It's not. Obviously, we go through one whole unit per session, so we have to do it all at home, and then we come in with questions and whatnot. And if you're thinking about being a night student or doing your course like I do, you've got to consider, is that logical for you? Now, they say, oh, full-time work should be easy with this course. Honestly, it's not. Quite a few of my friends are doing full-time, and they've had to cut down their hours quite a bit because it's just not viable. Because it probably takes 2 to 3 hours on a good day to get through one unit if you're doing it properly. Some units are faster than others, but obviously if you're doing it thoroughly and making sure you've got everything down and you know what questions you're going to ask in session, etc., then it may be another thing. You may go, okay, well, this took me 3 hours or 4 hours, but that's because you're being so thorough. If you're just going and skim reading it, then it can take half an hour most likely. But obviously it's not easy because you've got to set aside 9 hours a week to make sure you've done all that work, and then you've got to do 4.5 hours of lessons, which is obviously just talking and covering any questions you've got, doing some practice questions on the math kind of based ones because I'm doing business, and it is easy in that respect. Everything is very well laid out, but if you're not good at managing time, it is really unideal. The amount of times I have to message one of my classmates and best friends, don't forget assignments due this day, this time, make sure you've done it. Because she always forgets when her assignments are. Now, the assignments are done quite sporadically and it is kind of confusing sometimes, but once you get a gist of them or you mark them down, they become easier. And sometimes they'll only focus on a few units or the whole course itself. So you do three sub-courses in your course for semester 1 and semester 2, and then semester 3 you only do 2. So when we done our accounting, half of our units were in the first assignment and the other half of our units were in the second. But then in economics, it was more so all of our assignments were put in both kind of tests sort of thing. It was more of a mix-up of everything. So assignments are done a lot stranger, And obviously, like, you do them as tests, but you're at home doing the test. So you have to be able to find that, like, quiet place in order to do them. And my second common question asked when people ask me about this, when they're deciding on if it's for them or not, is, are classes smaller? Yes. Very much so. We started our year with 11 or 12 students. Now we're at the end of the year, we have 5. It's not great, but it is a very hard course and you have to be very dedicated to do it. Which obviously makes it slightly harder for some people, but once you get into the gist of it, it becomes quite easy, in all honesty. Like, you just relax with it, it flows better. The only hard bit is assignments, because originally at the beginning of the year we had 2 groups of 4 and a group of 3 whenever we had to do group assignments. Now we have a group of 3 and a group of 2. And so it's very difficult in that respect. Like, if you don't have a close buddy or someone, it's very awkward. And then it's like, in my group, there was 4 of us at the beginning of the year. There was me, Sanya, my best friend. I don't know if the others would appreciate their names coming out, so another girl and a boy. Now, probably semester 2, we started grouping up as a 4 together. We got along better, and it kind of became like a solid group. Like, we go into class, they would sit in the row in front of us in 2 seats. We'd sit in the row behind them in 2 seats across. And basically that was so we could kind of like still see the board, because obviously the class is quite empty. So we could all literally sit in the front row, but Sanya likes to sit in the back most of the time. So obviously we'd sit like that. And obviously we had our group chat, we'd talk. We got on with the work quite well. And then there were 2 girls who would team up together. Well, originally there was 3 girls that would team up together, which dwindled down to 2, which has now dwindled down to 1. So obviously, when making groups now, she needs to pick like one of our group, and obviously we've got so used to being a 4, it's kind of awkward. And it's like, we pre-agreed, like in semester 2 when there was loads more people, oh, we'll always team up. So it's very much awkward in that sense. So it does cause some problems there. But honestly, it's the reason our group works so well is we're all completely different. That is one thing I've learned. I am officially now the youngest in my whole class. Little sad. But it's a great learning experience because I've always been the oldest, and it's nice to have people who are older than me that I can ask help from, even though half the time they ask me for help. Like, it's just nice to know that, like, I don't have to be overly mature or overly immature to fit in, and that's quite nice. That's one reason why I wanted to go to uni a year early. And obviously because of my personal issues like anxiety, I found night classes were more ideal because of the smaller classes. And obviously I struggle making friends, so that really helped. And honestly, I love everybody in my class. We're all friends essentially. It's just like, you'll always have those people like you're closer to or you're not so close to. And if you're thinking about it, I would always go to like the open like nights and things like that. And you can literally go online and find groups of night course students and ask them their own opinions, and they're always so helpful. And everybody in the community is like really good at communicating, and you build some very good friendships. Another one is our class is harder because you're doing them at night. This depends on you entirely. I used to be a very much morning person. So when I first started, it was hell. Because I went from getting up at 5 a.m. and going to bed at like 9:30 to suddenly having to stop that and get up later so that I could get to my class on time and obviously not be half asleep during the middle of my class. So that was kind of an issue for me, but once I got into the routine it was fine. The only difficulty I found was where I work on a Sunday, I'd finish work, I'd go home, and obviously I've had to get up early for 2 days, and then I'll have a lesson on a Monday. That's painful. Also, I started having appointments on a Monday for a group I do, and I found that was hell, because I would have to get up, I would try to get up by like 11 or 12, so I'd try to make sure I stayed up late that after work, and then obviously slept in late. Then I would have to drive to a town over, or my mum would have to drive me, because sometimes I can get very emotional at my groups, so obviously it's not ideal. So drive over, my mum would go shopping for an hour and a half. I'd finish my group at 3, 3:30. Then we'd have to drive over during rush hour back, hitting all the school traffic and trying to get to my class for 5 o'clock. Normally it would take us an hour to just get back into town, and so I wouldn't have dinner before I went in. I would just have time to get a snack, and then I'd have to have dinner after, which is at 8:30. Absolutely painful, because it's less than a 20-minute drive to the town over, and obviously coming back it's a 60-minute drive. Insane. But on a Tuesday, much easier. So it's just a case of adjusting, and you have to be prepared to adapt your own timetable or body clock so that you can fit in. I know one of my friends, she started doing afternoon shifts at work rather than morning shifts. She's not a morning person anyway, so she sleeps in sometimes to around 2 or 3 o'clock. There was one time she almost was late to class. Luckily the teacher was late himself due to some traffic issues, and she's managed to get the earliest train she could from her town to mine and rush over, and she was lucky the train came in as she got to the train station, because otherwise she would have been late. And literally the only reason she woke up was we rang her asking her where she was, because she wasn't at one of our group meetings, because we'd arranged to do a group meeting before we had class. And with group meetings, you aren't given designated class time to do them, so you have to be prepared to give up your free time to do so. So honestly, if you're a person who doesn't like giving up their free time, it isn't ideal for you, because you have to be prepared to give it up. You have to be prepared to make sacrifices, change your schedule, change your times. And honestly, if you're not able to be flexible like that, it really isn't for you, honestly. Any other questions, just comment them down below. But those were my 3